Talia Freeman thought she'd seen it all. 4 schools in 6 years had toughened her skin. But Westridge Academy was different. On her very first day, the PE teacher barked orders like a drill sergeant and made her run laps just for showing up on time. At first, she brushed it off. Maybe he treated everyone like that. But as the days went on, his discipline turned into something darker, mocking her hair, singling her out in front of classmates, spraying her with water like she was nothing. She tried to stay quiet, tried to blend in, until the day she collapsed under his orders, and her father, a quiet man with a mysterious past, finally stepped in. That's when everything began to unravel. Quick thing before we jump in, where are you watching from today? I love seeing how far these stories travel. Drop your city in the comments. This one's got real heat and heart. You won't want to miss it. And if you love powerful stories like this, hit that subscribe button. Talia Freeman stood at the edge of the Westridge Academy sports field, clutching her schedule. The sun beat down on her dark skin as she watched other students laugh and chat in groups. Another new school. Her 4th in 6 years. You must be our new transfer, a voice boomed behind her. Talia turned to see a tall white man with a crew cut and a whistle hanging around his neck. The name Coach Reynolds was stitched on his polo shirt. Yes, sir. Talia Freeman, she said, extending her hand. Coach Reynolds looked at her hand but didn't take it. His eyes narrowed as they moved from her natural hair to her freshly pressed uniform. Well, Freeman, you're late. 5 laps around the track for starters. But the bell just. Did I stutter? Move it. Talia bit her lip and jogged toward the track. As she ran, she could feel his eyes burning into her back. The other students watched silently. Later that day, Talia sat alone at lunch, pushing food around her plate. A girl with braids slid onto the bench across from her. I'm Zoe. You got Reynolds for huh? I saw what happened this morning. Is he always like that? Talia asked. Zoe lowered her voice. Worse with some of us than others, if you know what I mean. That evening, Talia's father, Colonel James Freeman, noticed her quietness as she picked at dinner. Tough first day, butterfly, he asked, using his nickname for her. It's fine, Dad. Just the usual new kid stuff. Colonel Freeman's dark eyes, sharp from years of reading people in high-stress situations, caught the slight tremble in her hand. Talia, remember what we always say? She nodded. Freeman's face problems head on. That's right. Whatever it is, we'll handle it together. Talia almost told him about Coach Reynolds then, about the way he'd singled her out, how his eyes had lingered on her hair with disapproval. But her father had finally settled into civilian life after 25 years of deployments to places he never discussed. The nightmares had almost stopped. It's really nothing, Dad, she said instead. Colonel Freeman nodded, but his military-trained instinct sensed the lie. He'd fought too many battles to miss the signs of someone under attack. As Talia fell asleep that night, she hoped things would get better. Maybe Coach Reynolds just had a bad day. Maybe Westridge Academy would finally be the place where they could stay put. She had no idea that within weeks, her father's specialized military training would become her greatest protection, or that Coach Reynolds was about to bully the wrong black girl. The late September heat wave hit Westridge Academy hard. By the time field day arrived, temperatures had climbed to 95 degrees. Students gathered on the sun-baked field, already sweating in their PE uniforms. All right, slackers, Coach Reynolds shouted through his megaphone. 4-station circuit today. No excuses, no breaks. Talia tied her hair back, already feeling lightheaded in the heat. She'd been at Westridge for 3 weeks now, and each PE class had been worse than the last. Coach Reynolds seemed to find fault with everything she did. Halfway through the jumping jack station, black spots danced in Talia's vision. She slowed down, trying to catch her breath. Freeman. Coach Reynolds marched toward her. What do you call that pathetic display? Sorry, Coach, Talia gasped. I feel dizzy. Could I get some water? A few students nearby paused to watch. Coach Reynolds' face reddened. Dizzy? You people are supposed to have natural athletic ability. He smirked at his own joke. What's the matter? Afraid you'll sweat out that fancy hairdo. A painful silence fell over the field. Several students looked away uncomfortably. Zoe, at the next station, shot Talia a sympathetic glance. My hair isn't relevant to Talia started. Coach Reynolds unclipped the spray bottle from his belt. Here, let me help cool you down. Before Talia could step back, he sprayed water directly at her face and hair. The cold liquid soaked her shirt and dripped down her carefully styled curls. Some students gasped. Others laughed nervously. There. Better. Coach Reynolds sneered. Now get back to work. Humiliation burned hotter than the sun on Talia's skin. Her protective hairstyle, the one she'd spent hours on last night, now clung to her face in wet clumps. Her white uniform shirt had gone transparent where the water hit. That was completely inappropriate, she said, her voice shaking. Excuse me? Coach Reynolds stepped closer, towering over her. Did you just talk back to me? You can't treat students this way, Talia continued, heart pounding, but standing her ground. Coach Reynolds' smile disappeared. Detention, Freeman. Today. And tomorrow. The rest of the class continued in miserable silence. When the bell finally rang, Talia grabbed her bag and rushed to the bathroom. Locking herself in a stall, she finally let the tears fall. Talia, Zoe's voice echoed in the bathroom. Are you in here? Leave me alone, Talia choked out. What he did was wrong, Zoe said through the door. But trust me, reporting him only makes it worse. Last year, Shanice filed a complaint and suddenly failed PE. Talia wiped her eyes. So, we just let him get away with it. That's how it works here. Sorry. As Talia tried to salvage her hair in the mirror, she saw something in her own eyes she hadn't noticed before, the same determined look her father got when facing a challenge. At home that evening, she said nothing about the incident. But as Colonel Freeman folded laundry, he noticed the dampness of her PE uniform and the redness around her eyes. Something was wrong at Westridge Academy. And James Freeman hadn't commanded Black Ops missions for 25 years without learning how to investigate a situation. The detention slip felt heavy in Talia's hand as she walked into Principal Harrington's office the next morning. She'd spent a sleepless night replaying Coach Reynolds' humiliation tactics, the laughter of her classmates, the water dripping down her face. Ms. Freeman, Principal Harrington barely looked up from his computer. Coach Reynolds says you were disruptive and disrespectful during physical education. Talia took a deep breath. Sir, Coach Reynolds sprayed me with water for asking for a break during extreme heat. He made comments about my race and my hair. Principal Harrington sighed and finally met her eyes. Coach has been at Westridge for 15 years, Ms. Freeman. His methods might be enthusiastic, but they get results. Sir, it wasn't enthusiasm. It was bullying. The principal's smile hardened. Strong word, Ms. Freeman. At Westridge, we prefer to resolve matters without making accusations. But he specifically said, you people, when talking about my athletic ability. That's a racial stereotype. Principal Harrington leaned back. I'm sure you misunderstood. Coach Reynolds runs our championship-winning athletics program. The school board trusts his judgment implicitly. Talia realized with sinking clarity, nothing would change. The system protected Coach Reynolds. Your detention stands, Principal Harrington concluded. And I'd suggest adapting to Westridge culture rather than trying to change it. Dismissed. That afternoon, Zoe slipped Talia a note during history class. It contained 3 names and a message, all reported Reynolds. All transferred eventually. After detention, Talia walked home slowly, unsure how to face another day at Westridge. The setting sun cast long shadows across suburban lawns as she approached her house. Inside, she found her father methodically cleaning kitchen counters, his way of managing stress since retiring from military service. Rough day. Colonel Freeman asked, noticing her expression. The dam broke. Talia told him everything. The spray bottle, the racial comments, the detention, the principal's dismissal. Her father listened without interruption, his face growing increasingly still. Not angry, just intensely focused. When she finished, he placed both hands on the counter. Why didn't you tell me sooner, Butterfly? You finally stopped having nightmares, Talia whispered. I didn't want to cause problems. Colonel Freeman's expression softened. Talia, protecting you is never a problem. He sat beside her at the kitchen table. Tomorrow, I'll speak with the administration. Dad, please don't make it worse. Principal Harrington already made it clear they won't do anything. Then they'll speak with me instead. His voice carried the quiet authority that had commanded elite military units. You deserve respect, Talia. Every student does. For the first time since the incident, Talia felt a flicker of hope. What her classmates didn't know, what Coach Reynolds couldn't possibly understand, was that her quiet, polite father had once led operations that toppled corrupt regimes. What exactly did you do in the military, Dad? She asked suddenly. Colonel Freeman's eyes met hers. I solved problems others couldn't, using methods others wouldn't. That night, he made a single phone call from his study. Jackson, it's Freeman. I need information on Westridge Academy, particularly their athletics department and a Coach Reynolds. Yes, it's for Talia. The wheels of justice began turning, set in motion by a man who'd spent his career making wrongs right, often from the shadows. By Friday, Coach Reynolds had heard about Talia's complaint. His retaliation came swiftly during morning PE. Freeman, demonstration time. He pointed at the climbing rope. Show the class how it's done. Talia approached the 30-foot rope warily. He'd never asked her to demonstrate before. All the way to the top, he smirked. Unless you want to fail today's assessment. The rope felt rough against Talia's palms as she began climbing. Halfway up, her arms burned with exertion. What's wrong, Freeman? Coach Reynolds called loudly. Thought complaints to the principal came with special treatment? Her classmates shifted uncomfortably. Talia's cheeks burned as she forced herself higher. 3 minutes left in class. Coach announced, anyone not reaching the top fails. When the bell rang, Talia's arms trembled so badly she couldn't grip her pencil in the next class. Zoe noticed and passed her cold water bottle. He's only getting started, Zoe whispered. Last year, he made Marcus run laps until he threw up after Marcus's mom complained. Meanwhile, Colonel Freeman sat in his car across from Westridge Academy, watching students change classes through high-powered binoculars, the same ones he'd used for surveillance in Kandahar. His phone buzzed with a text from Jackson, his former communications specialist. Background check complete. Sending file now. At lunch, Talia found an unexpected ally when Ms. Bennett, her history teacher, sat beside her in the otherwise empty library. I saw what happened in PE today, Ms. Bennett said quietly. It wasn't right. Principal Harrington doesn't care, Talia replied. Ms. Bennett's lips tightened. Reynolds has protection. The athletics program brings donations and prestige. Anyone who challenges him finds themselves sidelined. So nothing changes. I didn't say that. Ms. Bennett glanced around before continuing. Document everything. Dates, times, witnesses. Build a case too solid to ignore. That evening, Colonel Freeman spread files across the dining room table. Talia gaped at the information. Financial records, complaint histories, personnel files. Dad, how did you get all this? Let's just say Jackson still has certain skills from our military days. He pointed to a pattern in the athletic department budgets. Look here. Funds allocated for equipment that was never purchased. Is Coach Reynolds stealing? It appears he's been skimming from the athletics budget for years. And these, he gestured to a stack of printed emails, show 7 formal complaints buried by administration. Talia's eyes widened. Can we use this? Not yet. We need more. Colonel Freeman's expression was one Talia had never seen before. Calculating, strategic. First, we try the official channels. I have an appointment with Principal Harrington on Monday. What if that doesn't work? He touched her shoulder gently. Then we move to phase 2. But Talia, this gets resolved. One way or another. That night, Talia created a detailed log of every incident with Coach Reynolds. As she wrote, text messages flowed between her father and 4 different numbers, his former team slowly assembling for a mission unlike any they'd undertaken before. Across town, Coach Reynolds left the Touchdown Sports Bar, unaware of the surveillance photos being taken as he handed cash to a man known for running illegal gambling operations, and completely oblivious that the quiet father of his latest target had once dismantled entire criminal networks using the same methodical approach now focused on him. Monday morning arrived with an unexpected heat wave. The temperature in the gymnasium climbed to nearly 100 degrees as students gathered for PE. Maintenance had reported the air conditioning system broken over the weekend. Annual fitness assessment today, Coach Reynolds announced, ignoring the sweltering conditions. Standard military-style test, push-ups, sit-ups, 2-mile run. Murmurs of protest rose from the sweating students. "It's too hot for running, Coach," a boy near the front said. Coach Reynolds blew his whistle sharply. "Life doesn't give you perfect conditions, Matthews." "Neither will I." As students paired up, Talia felt a wave of dizziness wash over her. She'd barely slept all weekend, anxious about her father's meeting with Principal Harrington scheduled for that afternoon. First station, push-ups. Coach barked. Freeman, front and center. Again, he was singling her out. Talia moved forward on wobbly legs. "Let's see if complaining to Daddy improved your upper body strength," he said, just loud enough for nearby students to hear. 40 push-ups later, Talia's arms gave out. Black spots danced in her vision as Coach Reynolds loomed over her. "Pathetic." "Keep going." "I can't," Talia gasped. "You can and you will." He knelt beside her. "Or fail my class." The gymnasium tilted sideways. Talia heard Zoe's voice from somewhere far away. "She's going to pass out." Then darkness. When Talia opened her eyes, she was lying on a cot in the nurse's office with an ice pack on her forehead. Zoe sat nearby. "You collapsed," Zoe explained. "Heat exhaustion." The nurse called her dad. Before Talia could respond, the office door flew open. Colonel Freeman strode in, still wearing his business suit from work. His face was a mask of controlled fury. "Talia," he said softly, kneeling beside her. "How bad?" "I'm okay now," she whispered. "Just embarrassed." The nurse approached with a clipboard. "Mr. Freeman, I've noted heat exhaustion. She should rest for 24 hours and stay hydrated." "And Coach Reynolds?" Colonel Freeman's voice remained calm, but Talia recognized the dangerous undertone. "Where was he when my daughter collapsed?" "He continued the class," Zoe said quietly. "Said she was faking for attention." Something shifted in Colonel Freeman's eyes, a cold calculation Talia had never seen before. "Our meeting with Principal Harrington is in 30 minutes, he said. "Can you walk or should we reschedule?" "I can walk," Talia insisted. The principal's office felt deliberately cold when they arrived. Principal Harrington sat behind his massive desk, Coach Reynolds standing beside him like a bodyguard. "Ms. Freeman," Principal Harrington began, "Coach Reynolds tells me you disrupted class by refusing to participate and then created a scene." Colonel Freeman's posture straightened imperceptibly, the only warning sign Talia recognized from years of watching her father navigate difficult situations. "My daughter was taken to the nurse with heat exhaustion," he said evenly. "After being forced to exercise in dangerous conditions." Coach Reynolds scoffed. "Kids exaggerate." "She barely did 40 push-ups in a gymnasium without air conditioning during a heat advisory." Colonel Freeman's words were measured, precise. "After you specifically targeted her following her complaint." Principal Harrington cleared his throat. "Mr. Freeman." "Colonel," he corrected quietly. "Colonel Freeman," Principal Harrington amended. "Coach Reynolds has an excellent record at this school. Perhaps Talia is simply struggling to adapt to our rigorous standards." "Your standards include racial comments, public humiliation, retaliation against students who report misconduct." "Those are serious accusations without evidence," Principal Harrington said dismissively. "Actually," Colonel Freeman reached into his briefcase, "I have testimonials from 7 former students describing similar treatment and documentation of complaints buried by this administration." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Principal Harrington's face. "Where did you get?" "I've also requested an investigation into your athletics department finances," Colonel Freeman continued. "Certain discrepancies warrant examination." Coach Reynolds' face darkened. "You're threatening us?" "I'm informing you that this situation has escalated beyond this office." Colonel Freeman stood, helping Talia to her feet. "You have until Friday to address Coach Reynolds' behavior appropriately, or I'll be forced to pursue other avenues." As they walked to the car, Talia whispered, "What happens now?" Colonel Freeman's expression was resolute. Now we activate Plan B. They've had their chance to do this the easy way. For the first time, Talia fully understood why enemies had feared her father. It wasn't his strength that made him dangerous. It was his absolute commitment to justice and his methodical patience in achieving it. After 2 days at home recovering, Talia returned to school on Thursday. Whispers followed her through the hallways. By lunch, Zoe confirmed what Talia suspected. Coach Reynolds had told everyone she was playing the race card to cover for being physically weak. He said your dad threatened the school with a lawsuit, Zoe reported. Called him another entitled parent who thinks his kid deserves special treatment. Talia picked at her lunch. Maybe we should just transfer schools. This is getting worse. Is that what your dad thinks? He hasn't said much. He's been making calls in his office every night. That evening, Colonel Freeman called Talia into his study. Maps of the school campus covered one wall. A timeline of incidents filled another. It looked eerily like the mission planning room she'd glimpsed on base visits years ago. Sit down, Butterfly, he said gently. We need to talk. 5 people Talia had never met sat around a room. They nodded respectfully as she entered. Talia, this is my former team. Jackson, communications. Rivera, logistics. Chun, technical specialist. Williams, tactical. And Dr. Harper, our psychologist. Your team? Talia asked, confused. Colonel Freeman took a deep breath. It's time you understood what I really did in the military. I commanded a specialized unit that dismantled corrupt systems, sometimes governments, sometimes criminal organizations. We didn't win through violence. We won through intelligence, strategy, and exposing the truth. Like spies. Strategic intervention specialist, Jackson corrected with a smile. Your dad was the best. And now you're using those skills against my school? Talia asked, alarmed. Not against the school, Colonel Freeman clarified. Against a system that's hurting students. Principal Harrington rejected our evidence. The school board chairman didn't return my calls. They've chosen to protect Coach Reynolds despite clear evidence of misconduct. Rivera pointed to the timeline. We've documented 27 incidents targeting minority students over 3 years. And the financial irregularities are significant, Jen added. Nearly $80,000 missing from athletic funds. Talia sat heavily. So what's the plan? We have 2 options, her father explained. Transfer you to another school immediately, or stay and fix the problem for all students. If we leave, nothing changes, Talia realized. Exactly. Other students will continue suffering. Dr. Harper leaned forward. This decision is yours, Talia. Your well-being comes first. Talia thought of Zoe, of the names on the list of students who'd been driven away, of Ms. Bennett's quiet fury at the injustice. What if it gets worse before it gets better? She asked quietly. It might, Colonel Freeman admitted. But we'll be prepared. Williams handed Talia a small device. Wireless microphone. Records to your phone. Completely legal in this state for documenting threatening behavior. You want me to record him? Colonel Freeman's eyes held hers. Only if you choose to stay and fight. Otherwise, we transfer you tomorrow and pursue legal channels from the outside. Talia rolled the small device between her fingers, thinking of all the students who'd left before her. All the ones who might come after. I want to stay, she said finally. Not just for me. Her father nodded, pride evident in his eyes. Then we prepare for phase 2. Coach Reynolds doesn't know it yet, but his war of intimidation is about to meet something he's never encountered before, a strategically planned resistance. As the team outlined their approach, Talia realized something profound. Her father hadn't brought his military skills home because of anger or revenge. He'd brought them because this was exactly what he'd fought for overseas, protecting the vulnerable from those who abused power. For the first time since the water bottle incident, Talia felt something stronger than fear or anger. She felt hope. The microphone felt tiny against Talia's collarbone, hidden beneath her PE uniform. Jackson had shown her how to activate it with a simple tap that looked like she was just adjusting her shirt. Remember, he'd instructed, we need clear evidence. Don't provoke him, but don't back down either. Friday morning's PE class started with Coach Reynolds in an unusually dark mood. Rumors circulated that Principal Harrington had questioned him about the missing athletic funds. "Listen up," he barked. "Change of plans today. We're playing dodgeball." Freeman, Matthews, team captains. Talia stepped forward, heart pounding. This was the first time she'd been given any leadership role. "Freeman, your team wears pennies," Coach Reynolds said, tossing her a bag of the sweaty mesh vest that no one wanted to wear. "And since you're so special, your team plays down one person." Talia tapped her collarbone lightly, activating the recording. "That doesn't seem fair, Coach." "Life isn't fair, Freeman. Something you apparently need to learn." The game began brutally. Coach Reynolds refereed with clear bias, calling Talia's team out for phantom violations while ignoring blatant headshots from the opposing team. When Zoe questioned a call, Coach Reynolds benched her immediately. "One more word and you fail the semester, Washington." By mid-class, only Talia remained on her team against 5 opponents. As she dodged a barrage of balls, Coach Reynolds moved closer to the sideline where she retreated. "Not so tough without Daddy here, are you?" he muttered, just loud enough for her to hear. "Think I don't know he's been asking questions about me? Trying to ruin my career." A ball slammed into Talia's shoulder. She winced but stayed focused. "I'm just trying to participate in class, Coach. Let me make something crystal clear," he continued, voice low. "Students who cross me don't graduate. Your father can investigate all he wants. The school board has my back. Always has." "Are you threatening me?" Talia asked calmly, remembering Dr. Harper's coaching about clear questions. Coach Reynolds smiled coldly. "I'm educating you about consequences. Keep pushing, and you'll see exactly what happens to troublemakers here." Across campus, Colonel Freeman sat in his parked car with Rivera and Williams, listening to the live audio feed. His jaw tightened at the explicit threat. "That's enough," he said quietly. "We've got what we need." Meanwhile, Chen was in the school's server room, having gained access through a maintenance badge Jackson had recreated. Under the guise of a routine network security check authorized by the district, he methodically copied financial records, emails, and complaint files. Ms. Bennett, now an active ally, provided her classroom during lunch for Talia to meet with other students who had experienced similar treatment. 7 students shared their stories while Dr. Harper took detailed notes. "He made me run laps until I threw up after my mom complained," Marcus confirmed. "Called me Rice Girl for a whole semester," added Lynn, her voice shaking. "Said I should stick to academic competitions instead of sports." Each testimony reinforced a pattern. Coach Reynolds systematically targeted minority students and anyone who challenged him, while Principal Harrington buried complaints. After school, Talia met her father in the park across from campus. "How did it go?" he asked, scanning her face for signs of distress. Talia handed him the microphone. "He threatened me directly. Said students who cross him don't graduate." Colonel Freeman nodded grimly. Chen found emails between Reynolds and Harrington discussing how to handle complaint situations. They've been covering for each other for years. What now? "Now we take everything to the district superintendent and the local news." But first, he handed her a folder. "We need to prepare for Reynolds' reaction when he realizes what's happening." "You think he'll retaliate?" "People who abuse power rarely surrender it willingly." Colonel Freeman's expression softened. "But this time, he won't be targeting an unsuspecting student. He'll be facing a prepared opponent." That evening, as Talia reviewed the safety protocols her father's team had created, her phone buzzed with a text from Zoe. "Emergency team meeting called for Monday morning. Coach are looking angry. Says someone's trying to sabotage the program." The battle lines were drawn. Monday would bring the confrontation they'd been preparing for, but Coach Reynolds still had no idea who he was really fighting. Monday morning arrived with unexpected drama. As students gathered for assembly in the gymnasium, local news vans lined the street outside Westridge Academy. Reporters clustered at the main entrance, turned away by flustered administrators. Principal Harrington's voice crackled over the PA system. "All students report to the gymnasium immediately. Staff meeting in my office." Talia found Zoe in the crowded hallway. "What's happening?" "Someone leaked financial records to the news," Zoe whispered. They're saying athletic funds were misused for years. The gymnasium buzzed with speculation as students filled the bleachers. Talia sat near the back, feeling her phone vibrate with a text from her father. Stay alert. We're outside if needed. Principal Harrington approached the microphone, face ashen. Students, I must address disturbing rumors circulating about our athletic department. An unauthorized investigation has made baseless accusations. The gymnasium doors slammed open. Coach Reynolds stormed in, face contorted with rage. He scanned the bleachers until his eyes locked on Talia. You, he shouted, pointing directly at her. This is your doing. The gymnasium fell silent as he marched toward the bleachers. Principal Harrington hurried after him. Marcus, not here. Coach Reynolds ignored him, climbing the bleachers toward Talia. Students scrambled out of his way. Your father thinks he can destroy my career, he snarled. 15 years of service to this school, and some military husband thinks he could take me down with lies? Talia stood her ground, remembering her father's training. They're not lies if they're documented, Coach Reynolds. You ungrateful, he reached for her arm, but Zoe stepped between them. Don't touch her. Coach Reynolds shoved Zoe aside. She stumbled, falling hard against the bleachers. The gymnasium doors opened again. Colonel Freeman walked in, flanked by the superintendent and 2 police officers. Behind them came a stream of former students, those who transferred after being targeted. Marcus Reynolds, one officer called. Step away from the students. Coach Reynolds turned, his face pale when he spotted Colonel Freeman. For the first time, he saw the man not as an annoying parent, but as the calculating strategist who had methodically exposed his years of misconduct. You set me up, he said incredulously. Colonel Freeman's voice carried across the silent gymnasium. No, Coach. You set yourself up through years of discriminatory behavior and financial impropriety. We simply documented it. The superintendent stepped forward. Mr. Reynolds is suspended pending investigation, as is Principal Harrington. You can't. Coach Reynolds started. We have testimony from 23 students spanning 5 years, the superintendent continued. Financial records showing $82,000 in misappropriated funds, and emails documenting systematic suppression of complaints. Coach Reynolds lunged toward Colonel Freeman. You think you've won? This is MY school. The police officers moved quickly, restraining him as students gasped and recorded with their phones. Your school. Colonel Freeman's voice remained calm. I believe it belongs to these students, all of them regardless of race or background. And they deserve better than what you've given them. As officers escorted Coach Reynolds out, he shouted over his shoulder, This isn't over, Freeman. Actually, Colonel Freeman replied, Is. The superintendent took the microphone, addressing the stunned student body. Classes are canceled today. A full investigation is underway, and counselors will be available for any student who wishes to discuss past experiences with Mr. Reynolds or Principal Harrington. Outside, reporters swarmed as Coach Reynolds was placed in a police car. The charges, embezzlement, creating a hostile educational environment, and assault of a minor for shoving Zoe. Talia found her father waiting by his car, away from the media circus. Was this your plan all along? She asked quietly. To have him expose himself publicly? Colonel Freeman shook his head. My plan was justice. How it happened was up to him. He placed his hands on her shoulders. You stood your ground with dignity, Talia. I couldn't be prouder. As they drove home, past the news vans and gathering parents, Talia realized something profound. Her father hadn't fought this battle for her. He'd fought it with her, teaching her to face injustice strategically rather than suffering in silence. The war against Coach Reynolds was never about revenge. It was about restoring what should have been there all along: safety, fairness, and respect for every student. 3 months later, Talia stood at the podium in Westridge Academy's renovated gymnasium. A banner behind her read Student Advocacy Alliance, first annual meeting. 6 months ago, I dreaded coming to school, she began, looking out at over 100 students and parents. Now I'm proud to be part of the change happening here. In the front row, Colonel Freeman sat beside Dr. Harper and the new principal, Dr. Ramirez, who'd been hired specifically for her background in educational equity. When we face injustice, we have 3 choices, Talia continued. Accept it, escape it, or transform it. Today, we celebrate choosing transformation. The changes at Westridge had been swift and substantial. Coach Reynolds had pleaded guilty to embezzlement charges, accepting a plea deal that required restitution. Principal Harrington had resigned rather than face a public hearing. The school board had undergone its own reckoning, with 3 members stepping down after their roles in the cover-up emerged. But the most meaningful changes came from the students themselves. Our peer support network now has 30 trained student advocates, Talia explained. We've established anonymous reporting protocols and regular climate surveys. And next fall, our new athletics program launches with coaches hired for their commitment to inclusivity as well as excellence. Zoe joined her at the podium, proudly wearing her SAA coordinator badge. Most importantly, we're not pretending problems don't exist. We're addressing them openly together. After the presentation, as students mingled and signed up for advocacy training, Ms. Bennett approached Talia. "I was ready to retire this year," she admitted. "Too tired to fight the system anymore. You and your father reminded me why I became a teacher. We just did what was right," Talia said. Ms. Bennett smiled. "With exceptional strategic skill. The military's loss is education's gain." Across the room, Colonel Freeman was speaking with Dr. Ramirez and the superintendent. "We'd like to formalize your role," the superintendent was saying. "The district needs a student advocacy coordinator. Someone with your background in systems analysis would be perfect." Colonel Freeman looked surprised. "I'm not an educator." "No," Dr. Ramirez agreed, "but you understand how institutions can fail the vulnerable and how to rebuild them properly." Later that evening, Talia and her father sat on their porch swing, watching fireflies emerge in the dusk. "Are you going to take the district job?" she asked. Colonel Freeman considered. "I might. It would mean staying here until you graduate. We'd finally stop moving," Talia realized. "Is that what you want?" "To stay at Westridge." Talia thought about the past months, the pain, the fight, the transformation. "It's home now. We built something here." Her father nodded, understanding completely. They'd arrived as outsiders, become targets, and emerged as architects of change. "Ms. Bennett said something interesting today," Talia added. "She said what you did wasn't really so different from your military work." "How so?" "You identified corruption, gathered intelligence, built alliances, and implemented a strategic plan to create lasting change." Talia smiled. "Just with fewer explosions." Colonel Freeman laughed, a full, genuine laugh that had been rare before Westridge. "The best victories don't need explosions, Butterfly. Just courage and perseverance." As night fell fully, they remained on the porch, discussing plans for the upcoming school year. For the first time since her mother died, Talia felt completely settled, not just in place, but in purpose. The battle against Coach Reynolds had ended, but its legacy was just beginning. A school transformed, a community awakened, and a father and daughter who had discovered that sometimes fighting the right way for the right reasons doesn't just defeat an enemy, it builds something better in the process. And for anyone who might consider bullying a quiet black girl in the future, Westridge had learned an invaluable lesson. You never know who her father might be, or what skills he might bring to the fight for justice. That brings this story to a close. There's a kind of strength that doesn't shout. It moves quietly, like Talia's father watching from a distance, gathering truth one piece at a time. Talia stood in the middle of something cruel and unjust, but she didn't back down. And when her voice wasn't enough, her father stepped in, not to fight for her, but to fight with her. Real justice doesn't come loud or fast. It comes from those who refuse to let silence win. What happened in that gym wasn't just about punishment. It was about finally being seen, believed, and defended with unwavering love. Was Colonel Freeman too intense or just right? I'd love to hear your take, so don't be shy, leave a comment. You made it all the way through, which means this channel's your vibe. Hit subscribe and keep watching. Another powerful story's waiting for you.